Welcome to part 2 of our double cab bakkie comparison, which sees 6 top contenders in the highly competitive segment slugging it out for top honours. One of them is the Ford Ranger. It didn't take too long for the Ford Ranger to become a serious threat to the throne of the Toyota Hilux. It's got good looks, a great interior and true off-road ability, and this Wildtrack version on test is also fairly good value. And now it's time to see how it stands up in a head-to-head test. The Ranger immediately stands out thanks to its up-to-date styling, featuring American-style chunkiness and real attitude. The Wildtrack version goes a step further by adding gloss black and silver accents to a paint job that wouldn't look out of place on a muscle car. One of the strengths of the Ranger is this interior, which because of the space and the spec, makes it feel almost car-like. And that's the same with the ride setup. On-road, it's just very solid and very easy to live with. And off-road, it's almost effortless. 600 kilometers in a bakkie is not something one could be expected to look forward to, but in the Ranger, it's a pleasure. There may be a few too many buttons controlling its features, but with seat heaters, climate control, voice command and cruise control, it is a very nice setup. It can't quite match the Isuzu KB in terms of on-road comfort, but with good looks and a well-sorted cabin, it is a top contender. There is a lot to like about the Ford Ranger. Next to VW's Amarok, it is the most modern package here, and it's got the kind of drive you can live with every day, or take on holiday with you, preferably somewhere without any roads. And for me, this could just be our winner. The 5-cylinder power plant in the Ford Ranger is matched to a good 6-speed auto box, a combination that works well both on and off-road. With good looks, a well-sorted interior and a good drive, there's not a lot to dislike in this bakkie, although our fuel consumption figures show it can be thirsty.
Volkswagen has been a late entrant into the double cab segment with a vehicle it calls the Amarok, and it is a very convincing package. It certainly looks the part. It has the same power and torque that some of its competitors has, and it has a very luxurious interior indeed. The question is whether it can stand up to the rest when the going gets tough.
The Amarok certainly looks rugged and durable in the best 4x4 tradition, with a bold and angular presence that's decorated with chromed bumper parts and a stainless steel roll bar. The interior is smart, modern and more car-like than almost any of the other double cabs here, and it has a good spread of standard equipment. The all-wheel drive system is activated via buttons next to the gear lever.
I suppose the most controversial part of this Volkswagen Amarok is the fact that it makes do with a 2-litre turbo diesel engine, where most of its competitors actually have a 3 or even a 3.2-litre engine capacity. But in practice, that doesn't seem to make any difference whatsoever. It pulls very strongly from low down. It's very good in the off-road side of things, even in low range. And from a usage perspective, I suppose one of the things that might be a little bit disconcerting for traditionalists is the fact that it's all just a couple of buttons here. It just doesn't feel quite as positive as a nice gear lever like you get on the Hilux. But that's really just a subjective matter. Also, have to say it feels very together, very high quality, a lovely interior, and one of the vehicles, together with the Isuzu, that is the most car-like in on-road conditions.
That said, the Amarok impressed us off the road too. It easily traversed the slow rocky climbs and descents and always seemed to have enough urge, although throttle input wasn't always easy to modulate.
The Volkswagen Amarok looks the double cab part. It also has an interior that's right up there with the best, both in terms of quality and comfort. A little bit concerning perhaps the fact that it has the smallest engine, despite the fact that the power and torque figures are competitive. And when you really need that low-end grunt, it might not always deliver that grunt quite in the same way as you'd expect.
It may have the smallest engine here, but the Amarok's 132 kilowatt power output, linked to a full 420 newton meters of torque, is more than competitive and allows the big double cab to tackle tar and gravel with equal zest. A car-like cockpit adds further appeal.
The Chinese influence on the motoring world is getting bigger and bigger, not only in terms of numbers, but also in terms of the quality of product they're offering. So it's no surprise that they've tapped into one of South Africa's favourite markets, the double cab bakkie. Foton is a brand that's famous for not much, besides this, the Tunland. With a 2.8-litre Cummins diesel engine and a 5-speed Wildtrack gearbox, the Tunland has some boasting rights. The styling may be a little on the generic side, but on paper at least, it can do everything that any of the other bakkies on our shootout can do. It'll carry a full ton and tow 2.5 tons. There are a couple of things you notice almost straight away about the Tunland. One is that it has a very strong motor with lots of good low-down shove. The second is that the interior isn't quite as bad as you might expect at the price point. But after a while, you do notice some other things. One is that the seats are not the most comfortable, particularly on longer journeys. And second of all, the build quality isn't quite there, with lots of squeaks and rattles. And overall, the refinement just can't quite match the rest. It may have a good cabin with decent spec and space, but it's the quality of the materials, like the very plastic wood inlays, and the way it's bolted together that lets it down. That Cummins diesel engine also makes itself heard. From anywhere inside the Tunland, it's very obvious that it's a diesel. Off-road, it managed to keep up with the rest very easily, albeit in slightly less comfort. The Foton Tunland does get a few things right. It's got an okay interior, a drive that you can live with, and a very strong motor. But it is short on something that bakkies in general are becoming better and better at, and that's refinement. As a package, it is good value, but it's still not quite good enough to take on the established players. The Cummins motor powering the Tunland is very strong, providing good low-down power, but it's also easily the most agricultural motor on test. While the Tunland has all the right spec on paper as well as decent value, it's let down by a lack of refinement both in the finishes and the drive.